On this episode, I'm joined by Testa of Touring Plans to discuss his inaugural journey on Star Wars Galactic Starcruiser. Today is April 1st, 2022, and no, this is not an April Fool's joke. Lynn is really joining me today, and this is episode 448 of the Main Street Magic Podcast.
Jeremy and Rhonda are more than a little fond of Disney World, so they made this podcast to share it all with you. Reports and resorts, top 10 lists of all sorts. Main Street Magic's bringing it home for you.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Main Street Magic. I'm your host, Jeremy Stein, and I am not joined by my lovely wife today, Rhonda, who is down in Universal Orlando Resort right now with one of her girlfriends having an awesome time at Hard Rock Hotel, and we have a full review of her trip coming next Tuesday. But meanwhile, make sure you check us out on the web at mainstmagic.com, as well as follow on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at mainstmagic. If you've not done so already, please go out to Facebook and search for the Main Street Magic community and ask to join. And if you go ahead and hit that subscribe button, you'll get brand new episodes every Tuesday and Friday. We want to give a big shout out to our Main Street 16 Challenge premier sponsors, Vacation Grocery Delivery, Mouse Dining, and Touring Plans. If you want to learn more about this incredible weekend, which is coming in just 3 weeks, head to mainstreet16.com. And finally, if you're getting ready to plan your next Disney or Universal vacation, you're looking to go on a cruise or pretty much travel anywhere else in the world, head to mainstmagictravel.com, fill out a form for a free quote. Our travel services are completely free to you. So we're going to dive right in with Testa of Touring Plans, who we absolutely love having on the show and who was on the inaugural voyage of the Star Wars Galactic Starcruiser. Let's go ahead and just dive right in with Testa. Lynn, thank you so much for coming back on the Main Street Magic Podcast. It's actually a record-breaking 4th time that you have been kind enough to join us. And I will say, out of the 3 you've already done, 2 of those are our top 10 episodes of all time. So really appreciate you being here again, and welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jeremy. I appreciate it. I feel like Steve Martin hosting Saturday Night Live.
Yes. I think you get a jacket or something if you come on a 5th time. I'll have to figure that out.
Exactly. Yeah. I hope
so
there's
I'm so excited.
Tassels.
Yeah. Oh, you got it, man. Anything for you, man. I'm so excited that you're coming on to talk about the Star Cruiser. Before we get into your actual voyage, though, I got to hear more about your backstory, your new alter ego, Hank Lonely.
Hank Lonely.
Where did this come from? And tell us a little bit more about Hank.
All right, so here's the background. I originally wanted to test Disney's marketing material for the Starcruiser, especially the things where they said, you could make your own adventure and the choices that you make determine what you get. And I was going to test the limits of that, right?
Okay.
So my original idea, which I had which I maintained until about a month before my cruise. So my cruise was March 1st. So until like February 1st, I was actually working with people who were on my same cruise, and we were going to mutiny to see whether we could actually take over the ship and have everyone else adapt to that. And there were 2 issues with that. One was that after we I was talking to Imagineers who were developing it, right? And I was talking to people who were doing playtesting and things like that. As they started playtesting in the fall of 2021, we realized pretty quickly that you really couldn't choose your own adventure. It wasn't a free-form game in the way that Dungeons and Dragons or LARPing really is. So there was much more structured. The second thing that we realized was, because of the linear nature of the story, right? It had a definite beginning, a definite middle, and a definite endpoint. Because of that, if we had tried to do something like Mutiny, it would have ruined the experience for other paying guests. So even if we could have done the first thing, that we would not have done it. We would not have mutinied if it resulted in an impact to other guests, right? So we're not going to be jerks about it. So with about a month left, I had to come up with a different backstory. And so in talking to the Imagineers and in talking to the people who had play tested, the thing that we had realized was that nobody was really approaching the Star Cruiser from the perspective of humor, of having fun with it. So I decided that was going to be my thing. So my backstory became this character called Hank Lonely, which is a play obviously on Han Solo. And the idea for Hank was that 40 years ago or 50 years ago, like in the 1970s, he wrote, directed, produced, and starred in a 9-part science fiction epic called, and when I say this, you have to imagine me like spelling this out for you in large letters using my hands. He starred in a 9-part science fiction epic called Space Robots in Outer Space. Okay. But through a series of coincidences, everything that happened in Hank's films actually happened in the real Star Wars universe to characters that looked exactly the same, but they just had different names, right? Because remember, in the Star Wars universe, the Star Wars films are real, right, Jeremy?
Right.
It actually happened. Okay. But through, again, tragic set of coincidences, everything that happened in Hank's films actually happened in real life in Star Wars. So everyone in the Star Wars universe thought that Hank's films were documentaries and no one went to see them. Okay. And then my sister had a backstory. My sister does not. My sister was going with me on the cruise and doesn't really know anything about Star Wars. So we kept her backstory as simple as possible. She was my sister Christina. Every time I introduced her as, "This is Christina," and she's my biggest fan. And her one line that she had to memorize was, "I've literally never seen any of your movies." Right? That was her line. So that was my backstory. The other thing I did was, because it was a play on Han Solo. Do you remember back in the 1970s when Star Wars came out, Jeremy? There are these action photos, 8x10 glossies of Harrison Ford doing his action pose.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So I bought a Han Solo outfit from Amazon with the holster, with the belt buckle, with the vest, with everything. And I made 8x10 glossies of myself in the similar pose to Han Solo, had them printed up at CVS.
Wow.
And I decided I was going to bring those with me on the Star Cruiser. And this becomes important later on when we actually get on the Star Cruiser.
Okay. All right.
So that was it. My and instead of a blaster, you can't bring anything that looks like a gun onto the Star Cruiser. So I actually used Sharpie pens for autographs in my holster, which was appropriate.
Genius.
Yeah. Day one, our check-in time was 1 p.m. Chrissy picked me up around 12. We figured we'd get there around 12:30 because I knew that opening day, people were going to be lining up way in advance to be the first ones on. And I wasn't wrong. I mean, by the time we got there at 12:30, I would say it was 3/4 full of everyone that was going to check in.
So does the story, this is one of the things that I've been so interested in hearing about, is does the story begin when you drive your vehicle up to valet and get out? Are you on Earth at that point? Are you supposedly on Batuu getting ready to board this transport up to the ship? Talk a little bit about the check-in process and exactly where and how the story begins.
All right. So the check-in process was interesting for a couple of reasons. Number one, obviously day one. And I know you've heard me joke about this, Jeremy, but whenever Disney opens something, that first day comes as a complete surprise to some other part of the Disney organization.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
In this case, none of my GPS apps knew how to direct us to the Star Cruiser. It would get us close, right? But the roads were so new that like Waze and Google Maps and and all the Uber stuff that we had, none of that stuff worked.
Okay.
So getting there was interesting. Getting directions there was interesting. But yeah, the experience begins the moment you get out of your car, and it's all valet parking. I will say that driving up, it looks like you're approaching Alcatraz. It is not the most picturesque setting, but that's okay, right? It's a concrete bunker. and that's fine, right? It didn't matter to me at all. Yeah, but the moment you step out of your car, the very first people, the very first cast members that you meet, you could interact with in the story. So in my case, oh, by the way, if you haven't been, you should assume that every single person you talk to has an earpiece where they're being fed information about you. They have a camera somewhere on their body so they can see the interaction, and they have a microphone so that people behind the scenes can hear exactly what you're saying and what they're saying back, right?
Wow.
So behind the scenes, there's a team of people that is managing the gameplay in an office somewhere on the Starcruiser, right? And what that does is it allows them to say, like you and I are talking, right? It allows them to note, okay, this is Jeremy, this is the character name that he's doing, this is where he's from, and this is his backstory. So, and they will relay that to the next character that you interact with. So the next character that you interact with already knows a little bit about you and your reputation. Okay. And that's part of the magic.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow.
So I literally stepped out of the car, and the first cast member to meet me is a wonderful cast member named Jen. And she said, what's your name? I'll check you in. And I said, well, the reservation is under Len Testa, but that's really my fake name that I give so that people don't know that I'm checking in. Of course, you know me as Hank Lonely. And I launch into the entire spiel, right?
Wow.
And she's like, of course, Mr. Lonely, I recognize you. And I'm like, oh, would you like an autographed 8x10 glossy? And she, like, for just a second hesitated, like, they didn't train me for this. But she's like, oh my God, yes, I would like one. So I autographed the first 8x10 glossy for her. And the cool thing was, so I saw Jen a few times during the cruise. Every single time I saw her, her backstory was that she was my number one fan. So even if we were just passing each other in the hallway and she had other guests and I was with other people, she would point to herself and mouth the words number one to me so that I knew that she knew that we were all still playing.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
And it stayed that way the entire time. So 1 o'clock we check in, and the first 3 hours are it's sort of like a reception. The schedule says it's a reception. What it really is, though, is it's a chance for you to explain your backstory to all of the characters that are milling around the atrium.
Okay.
Right. So this is the point where you basically tell Disney, this is how much I want to participate in the events. And again, if you show up and you say, if I'd have gone up and I said, my name's Len and I'm from, Pittsburgh or whatever, that would have indicated to Disney that I may or may not be interested in actually being super involved in the game. But by saying, here's my backstory, and I made props, right? I brought 8x10 glossies. They were like, okay, this guy's in.
Yeah.
So right after we checked in and got settled, we knew to stay in the atrium for a while, and pretty quickly we were approached by one of the characters just to say hi and to make sure that that I still had the backstory and I was still interested in playing. And that led to so from 1 to 4 is basically introduce yourself to the characters, grab a drink, walk around, play with things, get orientated. And then at 4 o'clock, the actual game begins. And as soon as 4 o'clock happened, I was approached by one of the characters and asked to perform a task. And the task was take these 15 pieces of luggage from the elevator where we all checked in down into the cargo hold of the ship. Right. And so tasks in general have a couple of goals. Some tasks are just like learn where everything is on the ship. Right. So by sending me to the cargo hold, I got to see everything that was on the, let's see, I guess that's the 4th floor of the hotel. And, so I could see it like that. And then I got sent to the engineering room, which is super intricate with tons of puzzles. So basically you get to see how all the different rooms that you could visit and play in, how at least the basics of how they work. But the interesting thing was, so the cast member who told me, you need to move these 15 pieces of luggage from this place to the other place. We counted the pieces of luggage and there were only 14. So right away there was a mystery to be solved.
Huh. Okay.
So I won't specify how that gets solved, but from that point on, you're involved, and the cast members play different roles. It's the first day. it's difficult to discern who's on what side, right? We all know that there's a first order side and a resistance side, but the affiliation of some characters are not known until much later in the game. So on day one, you at 4:00, you don't really know why people are asking you to do things. You can sort of make some guesses. But yeah, so at 4:00, if you've shown a willingness to play, some characters will engage you and ask you to do a task, and it's different tasks for different people, right? Depending on how you play with those tasks, how you interact, how successful you are, you'll get other tasks to do. And then also a big part of this is handled through the Play Disney Parks app on your phone. So it's called a data pad, but you also get tasks to do and also communicate with the characters through your data pad. And for this one, Disney actually gave us our own iPhones. Have you seen this?
No, really?
Yeah, Disney gave us our own iPhones. And the reason for this was super interesting. So a friend of mine was on the cruise with me. He happens to work for Google, so has some decent technical chops, right?
Yeah.
And what he pointed out was, by looking at the app that was running, he's like, the version of the app that's running on our personal cell phones and the version of the app that's running on the hardware that Disney gave us were identical, but they were pointed to different environments. So like my cell phone points to the production Play Disney Parks app environment. This version pointed to like a staging or a test environment. And the interesting thing was when we tried to use our own phones to communicate with, to play the game, the app would crash, right? But if we used the phones that Disney gave us, which pointed to a special environment, everything worked great. So that told me, I mean, I'm a software developer. So what that told me was Disney's production environment and their test environments are different, and they can't figure out why it's crashing in one but not the other. That's why we all got separate phones. Yeah, honest to God, that's why.
Wow.
So a lot of the communication that you do is based on the phone as well. You get tasks to do like go here, check this out, scan this, solve this puzzle, things like that. Yeah.
It knows then, of course, because you're logged in to your My Disney Experience account. So same thing with if you had, will that experience be the same as if they decide or they know you don't want to participate with the data pad? So again, if you showed up and just simply said, I'm Lynn Testa from Pittsburgh, not only are they not going to probably approach you and give you a task once you show up in the atrium, but then the same thing is going to be the way that it interacts on the data pad? Are you just going to, like, what level of interaction is potentially needed to enjoy this experience? I'm someone who really, really wants to enjoy this experience, but I'm also the guy who doesn't want to get the camera pointed on him at Monsters, Inc. laugh floor. So I understand that going into this, I'm going to have a different mindset, but can you be the guy who doesn't want to be on camera and still enjoy this experience kind of from a side, or do you think it's really important to completely play into it? And money aside, let's not even say, we'll get to the is it worth it question at the end.
Yeah.
But money aside, if I've got $6,000 to blow, but I want to kind of sit in a corner and watch things unfold, could that still potentially be enjoyable?
The way I played the game was all in. Okay. I agreed to do everything that people asked me to do. I eventually picked a side, but any task that came up, I did it. And I think that is the key to having the best experience. You have to actively participate, and you have to do whatever they ask you. And here's what I think is interesting. There are a couple of things that if you look at the itinerary, just don't make sense for an experience that costs $5,000 for 2 days, right? Yeah. There's a space bingo thing in the lobby on day one, and there's a line dancing thing in the lobby on day one. And so I looked at that ahead of time, and I'm like, why would a $5,000 experience include these things? Yeah. And what I think, right, this is my own hypothesis, is you do those things, and again, this is during like your orientation period. You do those things to demonstrate to the people who are watching behind the scenes that you are willing to do literally anything to advance the game.
That makes sense.
So participating in a line dancing thing or participating in the bingo means you are up for whatever they ask you to do. And so I think it's a qualifier type of thing. So going back to your question, I think to get the most out of it, you have to be absolutely open to playing everything and doing anything that everybody asks. And I will say this, we started at 1:00. Like I was in character and playing or ready to play from 1 p.m. We did not stop playing until after 11 p.m. when the last character left the lobby and we finished the last puzzle, other than dinner. And dinner is actually part of the experience. Like the story keeps going during dinner. It was 10 straight hours and it was exhausting. Again, because I'm an introvert by nature, right? So to be on for 10 hours is actual work for me. Yeah. It was super fun though. Super fun. Like we explored, I think on day one, we explored the engineering room, which is very, very sophisticated and packed full of puzzles. And the cast members there were great in that it took me, I spent more than an hour, but I think a little less than 2 hours trying to figure out a couple of puzzles in the engineering room. And after a while, after you go in and out and you look around, the cast members will give you hints, which are great. I won't tell you what the hints are or what puzzles are to solve, but one of the great things that Disney's done is train the cast members to recognize when you're stuck somewhere. And they'll let you get a little bit frustrated, but they're not going to let you give up.
Right.
Right. So they're not going to make it super easy for you because that wouldn't be part of the fun. And there's a certain amount of adventure, just exploring all the different things you can play with. But they're definitely there to help aid in getting the story done. So yeah, so from like 1:00 until I think our dinner was at 7, was basically playing and going on adventures and really just trying to figure out like, you've asked me to do this thing, but why do you want me to do this thing? And how does it fit into the larger narrative? And that was that. Yeah.
So how much Star Wars knowledge or fandom do you need to have going into this? I guess to enjoy it.
I'll go by the characters that are referenced and the things that are referenced. The big references are to the Force, obviously, to Luke Skywalker, to Yoda, to Obi-Wan, and then to Kylo Ren and to Rey. So if you're familiar with the very first Star Wars movie, Episode 4, A New Hope, if you're familiar with Episode 5, and then Episode 7, right, which is the first one with Rey and Kylo Ren, that's all you need to know. So that's 4.5, 5 hours of watching some movies. You will be well versed.
Perfect.
You don't really need to know more than that. If you have a really complicated backstory where, like I know people who had memorized a bunch of different levels on, what's the planet? Is it Coruscant?
Yeah, might be. I'm not 100%
Yeah, there's
familiar.
like several thousand levels on the planet, and they had memorized, dozens of them, and they were actively talking with cast members about, oh, you've been to this level. Did you see this on this level? And that's part of the canon. I did not get into that level of detail, but the cast members are trained for it.
Yeah. Is Hank Lonely now canon, or do we don't know yet?
So on day 2, I had actually prepared a song and a dance. I actually prepared dialogue for every possible character that I could meet because they're doing improv, right?
Yeah.
I had prepared for my character. I knew who the characters were that I was likely to interact with, and I had prepared conversation prompts with each of them, right? So if one of the characters, for example, said, if I explained my background and that I had started in a 9-part science fiction film, and the characters had said, I've never seen that, or if they said, oh, that sounds horrible, right? I would say, oh, you've seen the prequels then, right? Tying back into the the fact that the first 3 or the episodes 1, 2, 3 of Star Wars are not generally well regarded. Right. So I had prepared a dance for the First Order in case it had happened. So you've seen the movie The Birdcage by Robin Williams?
Yeah.
Okay. So in that movie, he does this thing where he walks up to a guy and he's like, I need you to do an eclectic celebration of dance. I need you to do Martha Grant. Okay. So I adapted that for the Stormtroopers where so the premise was that the 10th movie in the Hank Lonely franchise was going to be a Bollywood style musical.
Oh my goodness.
So I went up to the Stormtroopers and I said, look, I know you're dressed like Q-tips, but I can see you have the legs of a ballerina. I'm casting for my 10th film and it's going to have a giant musical number. And I need you guys, I want to know if you guys are interested in doing it. It's all about an eclectic celebration of space. I need you to do adventure. I need you to do romance. I need you to do action. I need you to do danger. I need you to do Martha Graham. And I'm doing the birdcage dance at this point in person in the lobby in front of 100 other people, right?
Wow.
So I do it all, right? And then I come back to them at the end and I'm like, okay, but I need you to keep it all inside. And the stormtroopers were clearly not prepared for anyone to do that. So I ended up by saying, okay, if you're not going to do the dance, could you at least do jazz hands? And I do jazz hands. And then I'm like, no, spirit fingers? And I do spirit fingers. And then I'm like, okay, we'll just think about that and come back to me, right? And so again, I'm an introvert, so I have to go like get a drink of water and sit and calm myself down.
Yeah.
So a couple people come over. One of them is this woman who I've never met, who says, that was the single greatest moment of my entire life. Can I have a picture? But that's why I think Hank Lonely is canon on the Galactic Starcruiser. The interesting thing is I had friends going a week later, my friends Jeremy and Justin. I had told them that no one was doing humor on the Starcruiser. And so they decided that they were going to be used land speeder salesmen.
I saw that.
They actually came up with a website that was basically cars.com, but in the Star Wars universe. And the funny thing was they had captured like images of every land speeder ever used in the Star Wars universe. And they put this on like their giant, website like cars.com, but then they included a 1984 Toyota Tercel, like just as a gag. So I tweeted out like, if you're going on this, on this Friday cruise, look out for my friends Jeremy and Justin. They're very reputable land speeder salesmen. Well, the interesting thing was they met some of the cast members that I met.
Yeah.
And so when they were checking in, they said, "Oh, you're Jeremy and Justin. You're friends with Hank Lonely. We've been expecting you." And that was a week after I had gone.
That's amazing.
Yeah, which was great. Yeah. So my running gag now actually is for anyone who's going is to ask the cruise director whether they'll be showing the 9-part science fiction epic Space Robots in Outer Space. So if anyone's listening is actually going, if you don't mind asking the cruise director that specific question, that would be great. I'm trying to make this a running joke.
Oh, that would be absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
So where are? It sounds like the cast members. Obviously, you're getting the exact same entirety of cast members during your entire voyage. It's going to be the same ones from beginning to end. Are they staying on the ship?
There is. We were on deck 7, so the 7th floor of the hotel. The main play area, the atrium, the bar, the bridge, guest services are on deck 6.
Okay.
Deck 5 is more rooms. Deck 4 is all the playrooms plus the restaurants plus your transport to Batuu. But there's an 8th floor, and that's where all the cast live during the stay. So they're there with you in the hotel.
Yeah.
While you're there. Yeah.
That's a cool job right there. I think
really, really neat. Yeah.
And especially with the improv and continuing this story throughout and having to make changes. Well, you know what? Let's talk about the room real quick, and we'll get that out of the way. And then I do have some more questions about the overall story and your second day and food and all that. At what point on day 1 are you getting to actually go into your room? Are you checking your luggage when you first checked in, and they're going to deliver it? How does that part work?
It's all valet, and it's all It's all delivered straight to your room. The rooms are so I got a standard room, and I paid right at $4,800 for the room. The suites I've read online that could go as much as $20,000. I don't see how it can get to be that expensive. Like maybe if you had like 8 people, I don't know. But but I think when we priced it, a suite was $12,000, and the limited amount of time that you're in the room makes me think like that's not a great deal.
Yeah.
So the rooms, the rooms that we were in, the standard cabins, there's only 100 rooms in the entire Starcruiser hotel. 94 of them are standard cabins. 4 of them are like first level suites. And then there are 2 captain suites. And half of each of the suites are ADA accessible as well. So our cabin, again, standard room, if you measure the rectangle that is the hotel room box, right, including the walls, including the bathroom, including the storage, it was somewhere around 250 square feet. So just for reference, Pop Century is like 260 square feet of livable space. This is smaller than that. If you count just the livable space, I thought it was somewhere around 180 square feet, which is about the size of a regular cruise ship.
Yeah.
Cabin. But very functional. I thought it was extremely well designed. There's no windows. I think we've all heard that, right? What you do have is a video screen that is synchronized to the action on the ship. And that's super important because anything that happens outside your room actually happens inside your room too. So every time you go to hyperspace or go to light speed, you see it out of your cabin. And that's good too. Plenty of storage. There's a digital thermostat, a walk-in shower. There's a door between the sink area and the rest of the room, and then there's another door into the water closet, so 3 people could get ready at the same time if they needed to. I thought that was a nice touch. There's an Alexa-like chat bot. I don't know that you can ask it for like weather, but really every time you interact with it, it's one of those things where the way that you interact with the Alexa, let's call it the Alexa, the way that you interact with the Alexa advances the story one way or the other. So for example, the Alexa could ask you like, hey, this thing happened in the lobby, a couple hours ago. What did how did that make you feel? And if you say good, whatever side that was for, it thinks you're on that side, right? So let's say that, and I'm making something up here. Let's say that the resistance decides to arrest someone, and this is not an actual story element, right? But Alexa would ask you, what did you think that was a good thing for the first order to arrest someone? And if you say yes, then it knows that you're on the first order side, right? Okay. And if you say no, then it knows you're sort of on the resistance side. So that's really there to advance the story, and again to suss out which side you want to play on.
Yeah.
Other than that, I thought the room was, again, plenty of storage space. I thought it was well designed. My running gag with everyone that I encountered, all the staff, was this. The premise is that the Halcyon is on its 275th voyage. My thing whenever I was talking to somebody about like the hotel room was, for the 275th voyage, it really has that new ship smell still, which was kind of great. I only had like two minor complaints about the room. One, I thought the mattresses were very firm. Like, I like a soft mattress. I like a pillow top, and I like to smush down into a mattress. These were very firm for me, and so I didn't think they were very comfortable. And at that price point, I think you should be able to ask for a specific kind of mattress. Right? $2,500 a night. I feel like I should get my choice of bedding. Yeah. And then the water pressure was good, but again, at $2,500 a night, I'm expecting to walk into a waterfall. Like, for $2,500 a night, I do not want like the water saver spacer filler in my shower. Like, I expect to be drenched with water. Yeah. And that wasn't it. And I understand why it didn't happen. But again, at that price point, you can do other things with like water reclamation or recycling that doesn't affect my shower. Maybe it's because I have longer hair now, Jeremy. I don't know.
Yeah, that might be. Yeah, you need some of that extra pressure. Did I remember reading correctly in your report on touring plans that there is no coffee maker in the room? Is there anything else
No coffee maker,
included?
no microwave, nothing like that. No. Yeah, no. So it's just like a regular cruise ship, right? They're not gonna put those things in it. Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah. Now, how about the bunk beds? I know you tested those out. I'm thinking more of the lines, not of potentially us taking our family of 4 with the 2 kids, but us saying, you know what? The only way we can afford this thing is to split it with another couple, which means 2 people are going in those bunk beds. How are those?
I talked to a bunch of people about the beds. If you like firm mattresses, they're fine. Everyone that I talked to that stayed in the bunk bed said 2 nights was about the limit of what they would be willing to tolerate in the bunk beds. And it's not so much the firmness of the mattress, but think of the bunk beds are basically a cube that is closed in on 5 of the 6 sides. Yeah. So there's not a lot of air circulation in there. And I think that like every time I came back to the hotel room, I was hot from running around and interacting, right? I was warm, and it took a while to cool down. The first night I actually tried to sleep in the bunk bed and couldn't. It was just, I was giving off too much heat. The bed was too uncomfortable. I just couldn't sleep. I did not get a great night's sleep the first night. I ended up sleeping on the big bed.
So, Lynn, day 1, are you getting both lunch and dinner, or how is it working out, and how is the food there?
It's just like a regular cruise in that food is available the instant you step foot on the ship. And I really enjoyed lunch on day 1. It was our first chance to see what the Crown of Karelia dining room looked like. In this case, they were serving a cafeteria-style lunch. The food definitely has a different look than traditional food on Earth. They have, like, for example, a grilled cheese sandwich that doesn't look like a grilled cheese sandwich. It comes with a tomato pepper dipping sauce that was delicious. The food was very good. I will say, everything that I ate, nothing was bad. Some of it was very good. Most of it was very good as well. The lunch and dinner one was great, and you can eat as much as you want of anything. I will say, if you have picky eaters, especially kids who want to know what they're eating, the shapes and the colors of some of the food aren't recognizable. So that could be off-putting to some kids. But again, if you wanted chicken nuggets, you can get chicken nuggets.
Okay.
If you wanted, a hamburger, you could probably get a hamburger somewhere. I thought the food was great. And then, and that was available from 1 to 4. Dinner, I think the first dinner seating was 5:30.
Okay.
We had the second dinner seating that was, I believe, at 7 or 7:30. I think it was 7. But in the meantime, there are always snacks available in the lobby, prepackaged things. So like cake pops, granola, fruit. Fruit is available 24/7, and water is available 24/7 as well.
And those are included, or that's an extra charge?
All your food is included. The only thing that's not included is alcohol.
Right.
And that's at the Sublight Lounge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like a regular cruise, are you allowed to carry on any sort of alcohol, such as a certain amount of beer or wine, like you can on a standard cruise?
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't try it. I don't think anyone searched our bags, so I'm assuming the answer is yes. You probably can. Would I bring a glass? Would I bring like a case of vodka in glass bottles? Probably not. Would I, bring one bottle, carefully packed of something? Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
If anything, they're just taking it out. We had that on we messed up the one cruise we did and somehow got wine confiscated. So apparently I didn't read the rules right, but but that's good to know for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely have to watch with other. I didn't see anything on that. The only thing they really told us was we couldn't bring anything in that looked like a gun.
Yeah.
But lightsabers were fine.
Okay. Did you do the lightsaber experience? And is that something, that's the one thing I guess I was a little not clear on is, are those considered like excursions that you have to sign up for, or is that part of the overall storyline?
You could do it during your visit to Batuu on day 2.
Okay.
My concern with that was we had roughly 6 hours in Batuu on day 2 before we had to go back and do lightsaber training on the ship. In those 6 hours, I spent a solid 3.5 doing every game task that I was asked to do. And so when you go to Batuu, you're basically working on the data pad, and the characters that you've interacted with are asking you to do different things. And it's basically scavenger hunts. Go here, take this picture, scan this code, solve this puzzle, right? But I was just going to grind through everything to get everything done. And it's super important that you do this, by the way. Every single task that they ask you to do on Batuu is important, because you will eventually unlock or complete a task that allows you to do other special things back on the Starcruiser. And if you didn't do them in Batuu, you wouldn't get the chance to do them back on the ship. So I'll give you an example. I basically was just grinding for 3.5 hours. And one of the things I had to do was steal a holocron, a box, a holocron cube, get it onto a TIE escort fighter, and get that fighter back to the ship. I think maybe 20 people out of the few hundred that were on the ship actually did that with me, because what that did was unlock a private lightsaber experience with Rey back on the ship.
Oh, man.
Oh, it was incredible. So I'd done lightsaber training. I went back to the ship. I did lightsaber training at 3:00 with Saja. Saja means teacher. Did you ever do the Void experience at Disney Springs?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. That was sort of my benchmark. Like, I thought that was the most incredible $35 I'd ever spent in my life, right? The VR was incredible. I thought it was just great. This is not that good, right? It's the thing that makes it good is the Saja coaching you. The cast member makes this, because basically she tells you, she explains what the Force is. You actually do this thing with like breathing exercises where you center yourself even before you pick up the lightsaber. It's very sort of like holistic and very healing. She got a super calm voice. I was joking with Chrissy. He's like, we were doing the lightsaber training. I'm like, I know she's asked me to help the resistance. If she asked me for a kidney right now, I would probably give her the kidney, right? Like, that's fine. I thought the lightsaber experience was just okay. But then when Rey was there, it was Rey, Saja, and maybe 10 people. And because I had done the holocron task on Batuu, Rey showed us what was in the holocron. And what was in the holocron was a hologram of Yoda explaining why the Force is important and why we should join the Resistance.
Oh.
And it was so emotional, Jeremy. I like the first. Also, it's a hologram of Yoda where it's in the middle of the room, and you walk into the room, and you can see like there's no machinery, there's no computer screen, there's no scrim, there's no nothing.
Yeah.
And Yoda appears just as a free floating hologram in the middle of the room. And honest to God, the first 30 seconds that he was talking, I have no idea what he said because I was trying to figure out how they were doing the effect.
Yeah.
It was amazing. Like, video does not do it justice. It was fantastic. So that was our little private thing. And of course, after that, you're like, I am totally on board with the Resistance.
Yeah.
Screw the First Order. Let's go fight. And so that was great. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So there's actually the end of day one. Day one ends, like I said, after dinner. There's a big set piece, a big show scene that happens in the atrium in front of everyone. That's the point at which it's basically your indicator to choose sides. Like, something happens and you either have to say, yes, I think the First Order was right in this scenario, or no, I think the Resistance was right in this scenario. And whichever side you're on, you should stick with that side for day two, just so you get the complete gameplay through that one side.
All right, so day two, I want to talk a little bit more about your trip to Batuu on day two, and I'll kind of lob a few questions at you. One, what was your thoughts on the transport? Because we know that anybody who has seen an exterior view of this kind of box truck,
it's a
of
moving
course,
van. I thought,
doesn't like it.
I thought it was fine.
Yeah.
There was a line to get, it's about a 10-minute wait to get from the hotel to onto the transport ship. We had to wear masks. That was fine. And then I would say it's about 10 minutes again to get, all the way to the studios and get parked. It was bumpier than I expected, but it didn't feel like a second that I was in the back of a Ryder or a U-Haul or anything like that. It was very themed.
Like, okay, so at no point are you viewing what we would consider exterior.
Central Florida? No.
Yeah.
It's again, no windows. There are no windows in the transport. It's all screens. So like in Rise of the Resistance, when you go on the transport and it gets captured, it's basically like that, but smaller.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. So
the other interesting thing is to identify people who are on the Halcyon while they're in Batuu, you get a pin with a symbol of the Halcyon on it. And the interesting thing is, I gave away the pin when I was done to Derek Bergen, who writes for us.
Yeah.
So Derek was like, look, anything that you get, any ephemera, I've got people who who help out with the website, drawing art or doing whatever. They would love to have those things. So I gave away my pin, and then I realized after the fact to check that I should have checked eBay. They're going for $500 on the pin, and I give it away, and it's fine. Whoever got it, I hope you enjoy it. I would not really have sold it. But yeah, that's how much these things go for.
Speaking of that, and as you're going into the interaction, do you feel that there is, because you're obviously fully involved and immersed in this story at this point?
Yeah.
Is there any then disconnect as you walk in there and you see the family of four in matching shirts pushing, a stroller and carrying a Mickey balloon?
There's not, for a couple of reasons. One is, they'll tell you that you're going off world.
Okay.
And that it's a tourist destination, right? That you could encounter characters from anywhere. But the cast members all throughout Hollywood studios, when they see the pin, they are also in character. And I'll give you an example. So I said I had 6 hours in Batuu. I spent 3.5 hours grinding through the game.
Yeah.
I did stop to go get some lunch. Actually, I drank 2 Cokes. That's my vice is Coca-Cola. So I went to ABC Commissary, and so again, I was trying to think of something fun for my backstory. So what my idea was, while I was at ABC Commissary, I was going to go meet Mickey and Minnie and get pictures and bring them back and show the crew. So I So I get in line at Red Carpet Dreams, starring Mickey and Minnie, and the cast member there noticed the pin and said, "Oh, I see you're from the Starcruiser. How is your voyage going?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's going, pretty well. But I've never been on the outskirts of Black Spire Outpost. Like I've never been this far out of town. What is this village that you're in?" And they're like, "Oh, well, you've come on a great day because our village elders are meeting visitors and bringing them in." So we came up with this idea that this particular village on the outskirts of Black Spire Outpost was ruled by a family of large rodents who they were celebrating the anniversary of their ascension to power by letting people come in and see them at work. And so I got a picture of Mickey, in his sorcerer robe, which the cast member, whose name was Lauren, and she was fabulous, she referred to as obviously he's wearing a ceremonial headdress. So he's in ceremonial garb. And that Minnie was obviously a princess of some kind because of the way she was dressed. So I get pictures of this, right? Lauren and I are going back and forth, and I'm trying to figure out how am I going to fit this in my story? So I go back on the ship, and I see the captain. The captain was like, "Oh, how did you enjoy your time in Batuu?" So I gave her the story, I joined the Resistance, but we got captured by the First Order because you have to ride Rise of the Resistance too, right? We got captured by the First Order, but when we crash landed, I was disoriented. So I ended up wandering past the village boundaries of Black Spire Outpost, and I met this village of rodents. And here I'm showing her pictures of Minnie and Mickey, and I'm like, and look at the ceremonial headdress he's wearing. And have you ever seen such a thing? And for a split second, the captain broke character and laughed like, okay, they did not train me for this.
Yeah.
Right. And there's no, clearly this is obviously some sort of headwear that represents him as the leader and her as the co-leader of this village. And I was like, okay. So that was my thing. I was like, look at these strange creatures that I met outside of Black Spire Outpost. So the crew are obviously all well trained in improv, and I was throwing things at them that I don't think anyone expected, but they handled it all really, really well.
Yeah, and I'm sure that they're glad you did do that, because again, that's something they can kind of learn moving forward.
I'm sure that there are stories. Yeah.
Yeah. What is included with your trip to Batuu, and are you there for a determined amount of time, or can you go back to the Starcruiser at any given moment?
You can go back anytime you want. Okay. So your Magic Band comes preloaded with 3 entitlements. One is a Genie Plus reservation for Smuggler's Run.
Okay.
Which you absolutely have to do. Don't skip the rides, even if you've done them before, because it plays into the tasks that you do. Remember, behind the scenes, someone somewhere knows everything that you're doing and is keeping track of that.
Right.
So had I not gone on Smuggler's Run, I would not have earned the galactic credits that I needed to barter later on in the day with another character. And then Rise of the Resistance, you obviously have to ride too, because there's another element of gameplay there. The third entitlement that you get is the Disney dining plan, actually. So they pay for your food when you're in Batuu. So the interesting, and you do that through the regular MDE app. Like you just you mobile order. Like I mobile ordered at ABC Commissary. They tell you it only works in Galaxy's Edge. It actually works anywhere in the studios, but it doesn't work in any other park.
Okay.
So you can't park hop to Epcot. Not that you'd have the time to do that,
right.
But yeah, anywhere in the studios it works. So those are the 3 entitlements that you get. Like I said, you could go back at any time. I tried to get there as close to opening as possible, and I stayed as late as I could to make sure I got everything done. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you are not an annual pass holder or ticket holder, are you buying a separate day ticket just for Hollywood Studios, or is that included within the Starcruiser price?
The day admission is included in the Starcruiser price, which is I have an annual pass. So did I pay twice to get into the studios that day? Yes.
Yeah.
Should I have gotten $128 discount or whatever? Probably, but yeah.
So one of the things that I've also seen, and it sounds like you've already answered this question, but I guess you can just reaffirm it, is people saying, well, we've paid all this money, and then you're going to put us into Hollywood Studios that we can do any other time, for a large portion of our second day. But it's sounding like that's very much worth it because of the fact that it's going to affect your gameplay when you get back on the ship. So it makes sense for it to be right in the middle, as opposed to just say them saying, you know what, you have admission to Hollywood Studios on your checkout day, and that's how you end your story. It sounds like it fits perfectly into this entire storyline in gameplay, right?
It does.
Okay.
And that was my original thought too. Like, if I'm paying $5,000 for 2 days of experience, why am I spending 6 hours of it in a park that I visit, once a week?
Right. That makes
Why
sense.
would I? But here's the interesting thing. Of the tasks that I completed, and I spent, 3.5 solid hours doing tasks. There were, I believe, at least 40 more that I could have done had I followed a different path during the game. So I didn't come close to experiencing all the things that you could do. I did everything I needed to do to to advance my storyline. But had I decided in the middle of my experience to switch sides from Resistance, or actually I think I started as Smuggler and then went Resistance. But had I decided to change sides, I would have gotten other tasks to do, and I could have probably stayed there the full 6 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
So once you got back on the ship after Batuu,
I did lightsaber training, and then there's still other mysteries to be solved. Why did this happen? Can you do this? Something happens on the bridge and this was actually the one weird thing. So the one time where the app glitched for me, I was invited to the bridge to do something. I can't reveal the story, but a character invited me to the bridge, and we ended up having to defend the ship from something.
Okay.
And then an hour and a half later, I got another invitation from another character to go do basically the same experience. But the interesting thing was the characters that we interacted with both times on the bridge were completely different. And not only that, but I saw 2 other groups of people who were doing, again, the same exercise, but they had different characters as well. So they've really built the experiences as a template to where the same activity can be part of multiple storylines at different times of the day. And I thought that was really, really creative.
So I had read with some of the media previews that there was, for example, an instance that somebody went back to their room to go to the bathroom, and there was a surprise kind of element in the storyline that happened they weren't prepared for, and they completely missed it. Is that still the case in the actual now inaugural voyage and all?
There is. So one of the things that we figured out was when you get your itinerary, when it's on your data pad, some of the things are listed like, 7 o'clock is dinner, 5 o'clock is dance routine or whatever. Some of the tasks are in a different color, listed in a different color than others. Those are the critical story moments that you should absolutely be around for. You should try and do every single thing. Like I would not go back to my room for anything. Like I think I went back once for like a 20-minute nap right before lightsaber training.
Okay.
But other than that, I was basically out and involved. That's the way that you don't miss things. And you absolutely should not miss anything that's in a different color or highlighted in the itinerary. That's super critical. Yeah.
Okay. So how about dinner the second night, and how did you finish off your second night, and then what is the checkout process, and at what time on your departure day?
So let me go back to dinner the first night.
Okay.
Dinner the first night is served family style. So they bring out a series of appetizers. In this case, they were bao buns, like Chinese bao buns with some incredibly tasty dipping sauces. You could order as many of them as you liked. One was beef, one was chicken, one was vegetable. I thought the vegetable was interesting, the best. They were also in these really exotic colors like purples and oranges and blues. You never see blue food, right? That's a George Carlin routine.
Yeah.
Then they bring out a bread service, and then they bring out, the mains. And one was really good steak and mashed potatoes. Another one was like a sesame chicken or like an orange chicken, Chinese food. There was a vegetarian option, and then there was a shrimp as well. And again, you could order as much or as little as you wanted. I had seconds of the steak. It was good. I forget what the desserts were, but they were also excellent. And while you're doing this, one of the performers, Gaia. So imagine like a dinner show at night, like a supper club thing where you've got singers. Gaia is out there entertaining. And of course, the First Order is there as well, commenting on stuff like that. So the story's progressing as you're eating dinner. You're never actually like off story. Night 2, we were at the captain's table, which, again, going back to the thing about I should be able to choose my mattress for $2,500 a night. The thing with the captain's table is interesting in that, it paid almost $5,000 for my experience. To upgrade to the captain's table is $30 more.
Oh, per person.
So like, yeah, per person. So it's a difference between, $5,000 and $5,060. like who?
That's insane.
Either the price is too low, or there should be another way to do it. Anyway, the reason why you want to be at the captain's table on night 2 is key events happen actually at the table, at the captain's table itself on night 2. Can't tell you what it is, but we had a front row seat for it, and that was great.
Now, how many people can sit at the captain's table overall?
I think there were 8 or 10, not many.
Okay.
And by the time we had got there, the folks who were to the right of us to the left of us, had bought the first round of drinks. So then we bought a round of champagne for the table, and basically every group took turns buying drinks for everybody at the table.
Nice.
And that became problematic, because as the minute dinner is over, the climactic finale of the entire experience happens. So you really you can't be too drunk.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And there's no like going back to your room to rest after dinner. It's like within 5 minutes of you finishing up, the finale starts.
And this is the battle between Rey and Kylo that we've all now witnessed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I will say this, I saw the opening night thing with Rey. Yeah, I saw the opening night thing with Rey and the lightsaber, where she starts off with the lightsaber that we all saw Josh D'Amaro wielding, right? Yeah. The thing that actually looks like a lightsaber. She obviously can't battle with that because it's a one of a kind thing. So there's this point as soon as she turns it on, she gets down on her knees like she's in shock from something, and actually does an exchange with another lightsaber that looks identical that's laying on the floor. The first time that happened, it was clumsy.
Yeah.
Our night, it was almost seamless. Like you could tell that they had practiced that exchange again and again.
Yeah. And
it was absolutely fine. I did hear in subsequent sailings there are issues with the lightsabers. Like in one time, Kylo Ren's lightsaber didn't turn on. Right. And it's hard to fight with a blank lightsaber. It doesn't look right.
Yeah.
So, but they've got some issues to work out. But there are special effects during the finale that are done very well, and there's some that are just okay. But overall, the thing that makes it all believable is the cast members that you're dealing with and how sincere they are. And again, you've got to believe in the story. Like I tell people, you have to actually believe, for at least for 2 days, that the Force is real, right, and that the First Order is evil and that the Resistance is good, right. If you believe those things, then it all makes sense.
Yeah.
Now
that you've seen the air quote real lightsaber in action in person, can you wrap your head around how the heck that thing works? Or is it still a mystery?
Cannot. And
Wow.
Jeremy, I've looked at that patent. I've probably looked at that thing 10 times. Like, okay, if I was going to build one, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how much could it cost to build a real lightsaber? I mean, $50,000? Like,
yeah.
I mean, $50,000 is a lot of money. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't spend it on a lightsaber, but that's within the realm of possibility for some people,
Yeah.
Like, and I've read the patent and I can't figure it out. So,
that's insane.
I have some friends in Imagineering that I may need to ask a favor or two for. We'll see.
Yeah. That's so interesting. All right. So checkout day, what does that look like then? Or are you finishing up after dinner and all? Or are you finishing up again at 11 p.m.
so
that day too?
It went again until like 11 o'clock on day 2. And, and after that was all done, because it was the inaugural cruise, there were, we were all like super excited. And there were a lot of people there who were reviewing it, who did not review it as part of the free media event. They had to actually pay to review it because of their group, like the LA Times, I guess, doesn't take free things from Disney. So they paid for the cruise. So we were talking, about them and with some other people just about the whole experience. And there were a ton of Disney executives on the cruise as well. So talking with them about the operation of the hotel and things like that was really interesting. And it's actually great because a few of them I had met before, but years ago. And now they're all in new roles. So it was good to catch up.
That's awesome.
And then the morning of day 3, again, I did not sleep well night 2. I was all like super excited from the experience. Like I thought it was incredible. Like I thought it was very, very well done. So morning of day 3, got up, had breakfast at the cafeteria. It was excellent. And then you take the transport elevator, which looks a lot like the old hydrolators. from Seabase Alpha in Epcot. You take that, and then you're back in the real world. And then the only difficulty I had was I had called an Uber to get home, and of course Uber doesn't have directions to the Starcruiser, so my Uber driver drove around the studios a couple of times while he tried to figure out what the road signs look like.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense then. Who is this for? What is the target audience? Because I know it's going to border on both potentially Star Wars fans and people that have, $5,000 to $6,000 to spend. But who do you think this is really targeted directly to?
Yeah, so I mean, there are a couple of things. Obviously, you have to have the money. You should be a Star Wars fan, and you absolutely have to be willing to play the game, right? You have to be willing to participate. So I was talking to a family from Buffalo. It was 4 adults, and they had done the experience. But I asked them, like, what'd you think of it? And they're like, well, we didn't really, they didn't do backstories. They didn't go to Batuu. They didn't participate in any of the games. I was like, well, why are you here? And they're like, well, we've stayed at all the hotels. We've been on all the rides. We've been to all the parks around the world. Yeah. This was another thing we wanted to check off our list, to say that we'd done it. And as I was telling this to Laurel, my wife, her point was, if you didn't participate in the games and you didn't go to Batuu, did you really, quote, do it?
Yeah.
And I would say you didn't. I wouldn't recommend spending $5,000 if you're not going to do that. That doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
Yeah. It's for people who like Star Wars. Like, I like Star Wars. I've seen all the movies, and I've read I've read the Episode 4 book, and that's the extent of it. Like, I don't have any collectibles or anything like that. And I don't know all the backstories of all the characters. I did. I will say, I did when I was prepping for my backstory. I did ask Dan Zare and Drew Taylor for help in pronouncing certain Wookiee phrases in case they came up, and God bless them, they helped. So that was great.
That's outstanding.
But that's it. That's the extent of my fandom. And you have to have the money too, and it's a lot of money, right? Yeah. So that's the other big thing.
Would you change anything about the experience if Disney came to you and said, Lynn, tell us what you would change, and that's what we're going to do for future voyages? Is there anything glaring that really sticks out for you?
We've talked about the mattresses, and I really do think that's important. Like, if I've been in Vegas before, staying in some fairly decent hotels, and they've got things like pillow menus or blanket menus, right? Where you can select and for a lot less money than what I was paying for the Starcruiser. I think that the water pressure thing. The only other thing I would like to see is, they've got prepackaged snacks, and they've got sparkling, flat, and tap water available. I'd like to see beverages available 24/7 as well.
Yeah.
But that's really it. I think the strength of this is the characters and the incredibly detailed story. There have to be hundreds of paths through the story narrative. And I've seen a little bit about the computer software that's keeping it all in, keeping track of all of it. But there's just behind the scenes, there's got to be dozens of cast members trying to figure out or keep track of everything. And that's really the strength of the whole thing.
Yeah. Do you feel that we missed out on what Galaxy's Edge should have been because they put it on the Starcruiser? Things like interact, and I know things are obviously different in the past 2 years, is we just heard that character meet and greets are coming back to normal and all. But do you think at some point Disney said, obviously they've been developing this for as long, if not longer, than potentially Galaxy's Edge? Did we miss out in Galaxy's Edge because it's in a very specific timeline that doesn't include these walk-around characters? It's not doing what Avengers Campus is doing, who had Moon Knight appear on the actual day that the show appeared.
Of the preview.
Did we get kind of snuffed a little bit with Galaxy's Edge because they were saving it all for the Starcruiser?
There are a couple of things that I think we had heard for Batuu that end up in the Starcruiser. One is this idea of reputation following you around, right?
Yeah.
On the Starcruiser, everyone knows your backstory, and they have a way to communicate it. I don't know how you would do that. And that works for 100 cabins worth of people,
right?
200 people.
Sure.
I don't know how that would work in Disney's Hollywood studios with, 50,000 people a day.
Yeah.
I don't know that the tracking technology is available for that. So it might have been a great idea. I don't know that they could have I didn't know that it was even technically feasible. We were supposed to get droids in Batuu. We were supposed to get droids on the Starcruiser. They have droids, but they're not out and walking around.
Okay.
And the main reason for that I've heard from Imagineers is liability, right? You get like a 6-year-old who wants to climb on top of an R2 unit, or who decides to push over the R2 unit and it falls on someone else and breaks their foot, who's liable.
Yeah.
Right. There are issues there. So I get it. The dinner show, like we were supposed to get a sit down restaurant for Batuu. That is clearly what is on the Galactic Starcruiser.
Yeah.
Now. And the problematic part of that is we can never get a dinner show now on Batuu because it's going to look like the Starcruiser. And if it's not, there's going to be a direct comparison, right? Yep. And then there was, walk around characters and stuff that we saw a little bit of it with the Stormtroopers, and they're coming back, obviously. I just think some of it would have been great if done at scale in Batuu.
Yeah.
I don't know how it would have worked, that way, because the technology is for that would probably be way beyond what Disney's capable of right now.
Yeah.
No, so I mean, it's great that it works. I mean, I don't love the fact that you have to pay $5,000 to get something that was essentially promised to us
right
in Batuu. On the other hand, they did sort of deliver it, even if it's at a much higher price point. Yeah. So something to be said for that. Yeah.
No, that's for sure. Do you see this as something that Disney will mimic in other areas of the world, where all of a sudden there's a Star Wars Galactic Starcruiser experience, obviously without Batuu, in London or just other major cities throughout either the U.S. or the entire world? Is this the next level of themed hotel entertainment?
Yes, I absolutely think they're going to clone it. If the next one is not Marvel's Avengers in California, I will be shocked.
Oh man!
If I said this after leaving the Starcruiser, if Universal Orlando is not working on the same thing for Harry Potter, it's essentially negligence on the part of management. Like, they would be idiots not to be working on this right now.
Yeah. So, is it worth it? And I question this in the sense of, is it worth it for somebody who has the money to spend? Because I don't have $6,000 to take my family of 4. If I had $6,000,
you've got 2 kidneys, Jeremy. What are you saying?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Is it worth it if you have the financial means to experience this?
Yeah. So this is the big question. Like, I'm a travel writer, right? So I think it's my responsibility to actually say things like this, whether it's worth it or not. And a lot of people were like, oh, well, it's up to you and as to whether it's worth it. But $5,000 is more than 95% of Americans spend on vacations every year, right? So and the other 5% are so rich that $5,000 doesn't mean anything to them. You don't need to worry about them or give them travel advice. They're basically going to spend it on whatever they want, right? Yeah. So the question is for the people for whom $5,000 is a lot of money, is it worth it to them, right?
Yeah.
So ignoring Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates and Warren Buffett. Here's what I said, right? If you haven't seen the United States, go spend your $5,000 on that. The United States is a huge country. It has vast natural resources, and there are good people in every city in every state that you go to. Yeah. If you haven't seen the United States, and I literally mean all 50 states, you should go do that before you spend $5,000 in the Starcruiser, right? And as I was saying that, I remember this one time. This can be a strange story. I was on a llama farm in Seattle.
Okay.
One time.
All right. I did not see that coming.
Yeah, I did not see it. I'm walking along this llama farm on the outskirts of Seattle and trying to take pictures of the llamas. And the thing that struck me about that trip was the number of people who stopped and said, do you need a ride somewhere? Are you okay?
Yeah.
Because I was out in Seattle taking pictures of llamas. And that to me was like, these people don't know who I am. They don't know why I'm here. I could be crazy, right? But yet they're stopping to offer me, a ride, to town or whatever to make sure I was okay. And that's sort of affirming, right? It tells you that the United States is okay.
Yeah.
So if you haven't traveled the United States, go see the United States. Likewise, if you haven't been to Western Europe, go do that with $5,000. A lot of the stuff that the United States has or Canada has, whether it's systems of government or culture, comes from Western Europe. It's good to go see where all that stuff came from. Plus, Europe has some of the strangest and unique plumbing and electrical systems that you've ever seen. And if you've never been yelled at by a British butler about why you can't figure out the 7 knobs on the hotel shower, like you have not really lived yet. Yeah, like
there you go.
There's hot and cold. Why are there 7 knobs? Like, what are these? Anyway, I never
hilarious.
actually figured out how to take a shower in that particular hotel.
Okay.
Yeah, and and if you're not from Western Europe, if you're from Africa or Asia or whatever, go see your homeland there for the same reasons, right?
Yeah.
But after that, yeah, if you got $5,000 and you're a Star Wars fan, absolutely. I'll do it again next year. Like I'm going again in 2023.
That's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
I would love to do it, but I see your point of there are many other things to do that will certainly be much larger experiences, especially when you look at cruises and stuff, like legit 5 to 7 day cruises. I'm sure you can do for, on certain ships for a fraction of that cost. So
well, Royal had, and it's not there anymore, but Royal had 7-night Alaska cruises on a balcony for 4 people for $2,000 earlier this year.
Wow.
7 nights in Alaska with all your food in the balcony for $2,000 for 4 people.
That definitely makes
go
sense.
do that, man. Yeah, that was great. But yeah, I mean, if you've I think I said this in my review. Like I've been to 46 of the 50 states. I'm missing Nebraska, Iowa, North Dakota, but not South Dakota, and Maine.
Wow.
So I'll probably get 3 of those this year.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I've seen the United States. I've spent months in Europe. It's I'm well traveled, so I'm good with that. Yeah.
That's a great comparison, and obviously we all, and our listeners appreciate the honesty and everything of that, that you provide. You've been so generous with your time. I only have one last quick question, and that is, are there any leftover 8x10s autographed by Hank Lonely? And if so, is there any way I can get one?
I have to print up another batch. I just gave out the 25th of the 25 last week. But send me your address. I'll send you one.
I sure will. Well, Lynn, as always, appreciate you coming on. You're always just so generous with your time. You're so honest about all of these. And your knowledge is it's unbelievable. And what I love about having you on, especially for something like this, is that detail and that data of really, fine-tuning into every little thing. I had not heard once that the cast members on board were basically collecting your information, passing it on to each other so that your next interaction, it's just absolutely fascinating. This has been so cool. This is be one of those episodes that people that are never going to go on this will, I think, find so much value and information in. So again, Lynn, thank you so much. Appreciate your time, and look forward to having you on again for your, 5th episode soon. And that's when you get the jacket. So
I'll get the jacket. Yeah. I'll say this, Jeremy. If any of your listeners have any questions about the Starcruiser, just email me, len@touringplans.com. I'm happy to answer.
That's awesome. And I got to give you one more thank you to you and Touring Plans as well for being one of the premier sponsors for our Main Street 16 challenge that's coming up in a few weeks.
That's going to be great. Yeah. I'm super excited about that.
I'll tell you, we will be using Touring Plans all day long to get our way through those 4 parks and those 16 rides.
So. Speaking of exhausting.
Yes, that's going to be
a lot.
That's going to be a lot. I'm interested to see if anybody can complete it. And when we were doing it, we wanted to make something that felt obtainable. I don't know if anybody will complete it, but it's doable, as opposed to like the every ride challenges that just seem almost impossible. So
how many attractions in a day?
16, 4 at each park. That's
doable, but that's gonna be a long day. I've done like 4 in each park as a headliner, and we had some special fast passes.
Okay.
The day I was doing it. So I had some friends over from the UK, and I called a friend at Disney who was able to get us a bunch of fast passes. And the thing we were trying to do was top 4 rides in each park. But like you walk up to a standby line and it says like 120 minutes or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so we were trying to figure out how many minutes we could save over the course of a day. And if you think about it, there's 1,440 minutes in a day. So our question was, could we save 1,440 minutes of standby wait by doing it? And it turns out that it took us 12 and a half hours to get through all 16 rides. And we were exhausted because you're basically running from ride to ride. But we ended up in the Magic Kingdom. And the reason why we did not get to 1,440 minutes was because the lines were dropping so fast that we couldn't run from one end of the park to the other to get in a line while it was still long enough to save the time.
Okay.
So we ended up saving like 1,300 and some minutes
Jeez.
over 16 attractions.
That's-
Yeah, it was exhausting though. So yeah, good luck with that. Stay hydrated and bring sunscreen.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'll keep you updated on that. Well, Lynn, thank you so much,
let me know.
and we will chat again very soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeremy.
What an awesome episode with so much information from Lynn. We absolutely love having him on. As long as you're out on the internet just listening to this thing, we would love if you hit the subscribe button so you can get brand new episodes every Tuesday and Friday. And as long as you're out there, we would absolutely love if you leave us a rating and review. Because as Rhonda would say if she was here, it helps our show grow. That's all we've got. We'll see you real soon.
Jeremy and Rhonda are more than a little fond of Disney World, so they made this podcast to share it all with you. Reports and resorts, top 10 lists of all sorts, Main Street Magic's bringing it home for you.